Almost 2 weeks ago, Russia agreed in talks in Geneva to help defuse the mounting crisis in eastern Ukraine. There has been deadly violence there as pro-Russian militias have taken over local government buildings. President Obama said Russia has not lived up to those commitments.
As a consequence, we are going to be moving forward with an expanded list of individuals and companies that will be affected by sanctions. The goal here is not to go after Mr. Putin personally. The goal is to change his calculus with respect to how the current actions that he's engaging in Ukraine could have an adverse impact on the Russian economy over the long haul, and to encourage him to actually walk the walk and not just talk the talk when it comes to diplomatically resolving the crisis in Ukraine.
The United States already instituted mild sanctions against Russia last month after it annexed Crimea. The new sanctions will target 7 senior Russian officials and 17 Russian companies, all from Russian President Vladimir Putin's inner circle. Their assets abroad will be frozen, they are being denied U.S. visas, and U.S. high-tech exports to the companies will be stopped.
I think there's already some indications that the sanctions on Russia are having an economic impact on Russia's economy. Standard & Poor's just the other day downgraded Russia's credit rating. So I mean, there are indications that it is taking a toll on Russia's economy. Now, whether that will be enough to change Putin's strategies and his calculations when it comes to Ukraine, I think remains to be seen. I think so far this sort of gradual approach of gradually imposing further sanctions has not really worked at all.
Russia has denied it is inflaming tensions in Ukraine. The West clearly does not believe that, but the problem for Washington is that Europe is much more dependent on trade with Russia.
It's really important that you have unity between the United States and the European Union, that in order for any kind of sanctions approach to be effective, you need to have the transatlantic partners working together, imposing pressure on Putin. But you're right, the Europeans are not willing so far to go as far as the United States.
Some in America are calling for much stronger sanctions.
The approach has been a very gradual one, that at each step that Putin takes, the West has added on further sanctions. I think that approach has not worked, and I think if there were to be further Russian aggressions like you outlined, I think you would have to see more pressure coming from the West. Unfortunately, I don't think there is that strong of a political will, both in the European Union and in the United States, for such a tough approach right now. And ultimately, I think that's something that can further embolden Vladimir Putin.
Analysts say to really punish Russia, sanctions would have to cut into that country's oil and gas exports, which account for the majority of Russia's foreign earnings. Washington's immediate challenge is to convince Western Europe to be ready to impose much greater sanctions if Russia takes further steps seen as aggressive. In the longer term, it will be in America's interest to help Ukraine become an economically successful and democratic country, one that can win the allegiance of both the Ukrainian and Russian-speaking parts of its population. Burton Bolag, KSA2, Washington.